Hi guys, welcome or welcome back to Randomly Random. I am Bwame, your internet bestie. Today we are watching an episode from the series, The Twilight Zone. The plot: while being on an airplane, a man listens to a podcast telling him that the plane will crash within 1 hour. What will he do? The plot already excites me. As usual, get your snacks ready, get your drinks out, and let's get into it.
An investigative reporter named Justin Sanderson is in the airport to catch a flight to Tel Aviv. He goes to buy a magazine and is recognized by another man named Joe Beaumont, who asks him to sign a magazine containing one of his articles. Justin does this with pleasure before they make their farewells and part ways. Justin gives his wife a call and they make up after a recent argument. As they finish the conversation, he realizes that it is October.
Look, just a few seconds in, honestly, the best time to make up with someone, if you fought, is when you're going on a flight, okay? Because you can die at any point. Like, I know the flights, like airplanes, have the lowest risk in transportation. But with all this news about plane crashes going on, look, if you argued with that somebody, that special person, before you go on that flight, you better call that person and say you're sorry, okay? Let's continue.
October 15th, and his flight number 1015 has been delayed to 10:15 p.m. What are the odds of that? Justin joins the queue to board the flight and notices.
Okay. They are giving us some clues here. His flight is number 1015 and has been delayed to 10:15 p.m. Guys, let me tell you something. I think one thing that I personally will practice, once I go to the airport and somebody tells me there's been a delay in your flight, I'm not getting on that plane. I'm not. These airlines hide things from you, okay? The plane might be having mechanical issues. They might be trying to solve it. I mean, you never know. I know there are many reasons why flights are delayed. But tell me my flight has been delayed and I'm not getting on that plane, okay? I am not getting on that plane. I would rather schedule a whole new flight, okay? That's just by the way. Let me know what you guys think about that.
Is that there is a problem with some passengers in front. The air stewardess is explaining that their child will need a seat of his own and first class is now fully booked. Justin offers his seat and the passengers are very thankful. Justin walks down through economy to find his seat. He looks around at the other passengers and notices that Joe is also on this flight. A man sits himself down next to Justin, who seems a little put out that this man chose that seat out of all the others available. Let's be honest, we've all been there. As the safety demonstration begins, Justin pulls out an MP3 player from the pocket in front of him. The podcast playing is from a show called Enigmatique and is titled The Tragic Mystery of Flight 1015. He looks around for some headphones, which he finally discovers in the seat pocket of the man next to him. Now it is that man's turn to look irritated. The podcast begins. It starts.
Wait, what? Why are you on a flight listening to a podcast about a tragedy of a plane with the same name as your flight, 1015? Why would you listen to a podcast about a plane's tragedy when you are on a flight? What a way to scare yourself. Like, what a way to make yourself more paranoid. What? Is he okay? Is that the only thing you can relax yourself with during a 13-hour flight? Man. Nah. He's not thinking straight. He's really not thinking straight because what? Let's continue.
That's by saying that the safety demonstration was underway and it is raining outside. Justin looks out the window. It is pouring with rain.
Coincidence? I think not.
The podcast continues. Little did the passengers of Flight 1015 know that in little less than an hour, their flight would disappear from flight control radar, never to be heard of again. Justin is thrown back in his seat as the flight takes off. Chapter 2 of the podcast is entitled Ominous Signs. The captain of the tragic flight was named Captain Donner. Justin stops the recording to ask his neighbor if the captain was named Captain Donner. The passenger replies simply with one word, "What?" Justin apologizes, but then asks him to take a listen to this podcast and explains that it says that this very flight, is going to vanish into the ocean. The man gets up and moves away. A female passenger looks across at Justin as he returns to the podcast.
Look, I don't blame the man getting up. Like, why would I want to hear that you're listening to a podcast saying that the flight we are currently on, it's like we are literally in the sky. It's not like we can go back. We're literally in the sky. You're telling me that the plane is about to crash. Of course, I would get up too. Like, why would I want to hear that? Why would I want to hear that? Why would I want to hear that on a flight I am currently on? Crazy.
Captain Donner noticed the presence of a flock of cormorants close to the aircraft. A dead bird is a harbinger of bad things to come. The crew noted that a bird struck the engine at 10:21. Justin looks at the time. It is 10:21, and a bird flies into the engine outside. Justin leaps to his feet and throws the headphones down in his seat. He rushes to the bathroom in a panic and says over and over again that the past is past. He calms himself and returns to his seat and calls the steward. Justin asks if that was a bird that just hit the engine, but the steward isn't sure. He tries to assure Justin that they are flying at an altitude where there are no birds. Justin gets agitated and the other passengers start to look at him. The steward asks him to keep his voice down and Justin calms a little. From behind him, Joe appears, telling him that it was a bird. He says that he used to pilot for this airline and they still let him catch flights if there is room. He used to work with his flight crew before, the Captain Donner and his flight crew Nick and Tammy. They won't tell you what's really going on. He doesn't fly anymore because of a few mistakes that he can't take back. Joe swigs from a bottle of whiskey before returning to his seat. Returning to the podcast, the narrator states what they know about the ill-fated flight.
He returned to the podcast. But I mean, what can he do, right? Now he's figured out that, okay, this is the flight this podcast is actually talking about. And so I might as well get more information so that if I could do anything to save the plane, I can. But it's weird because this podcast is actually telling him, like, event by event, how he's going to die, how this plane is going to crash. And, like, he stays listening. What else can he do? He's already in the air. Speaking of planes, one just passed by. He's already in the air, and it's not like a car that he can park at the wayside. Like, they can't just, like, park the plane in the sky. And I wanted to say something about the flight attendants. Like, I've never seen flight attendants in yellow. I sort of love that. Like, they are yellow uniform. They have this yellow uniform going on. Okay, let's continue. That's just by the way.
10:15. The final words from the pilot to air traffic control were, "Good night, New York." They also know that the flight disappeared at 11:15 p.m. Okay. But what could have happened to cause the flight to disappear without a trace? Minutes. The pilot comes over the intercom stating that there is a storm system developing faster than expected. Chapter 3 of the podcast is titled, "Every Detail Counts." The narrator states that 117 passengers were on board the flight when it disappeared from radar. With no forensic evidence, they have to look for small clues and patterns to help explain the bigger problem. Justin starts to make notes in a notepad and walks around the aircraft looking for clues. It is noted that the cockpit of the aircraft is covered by cameras, and so if there was an emergency that caused the pilot to react in an unusual way, then it is likely that the others would have also been aware of it. It's more likely that it was something unexpected and unique. As the plane flew closer to the thunderstorm, the pilot would have to calmly communicate with his crew and keep the plane under control. Perhaps something on board disrupted the plane's communications? Justin speaks with two Sikh gentlemen and informs them that they ought to switch off their devices. They wave him away and he starts to get angry. The crew approach and tell Justin to sit down.
I love their
He
uniforms.
agrees to the request under protest and continues to listen to the podcast. The narrator tells that there was one infamous individual sitting at the front of the flight, Russian citizen Igor Olov. He was in witness protection and was taking this flight to tell.
Why does every Russian in every movie, like, why do they name every Russian in every American movie Igor? Like, is that the only name? Is that the only name these movie script writers have for Russians in American movies? Igor. All the time. Like, this is not the first time. This is like the 5th movie I've watched with a Russian being called Igor. But I'm suspecting the former pilot. Maybe he would do something, I don't know. Because he seems quite unbothered by anything. Like, he seems like he has nothing to live for. Like, he just seems unbothered. I don't know. There's something about him. I may be wrong, but there's something about him I can't put my fingers on. I may be wrong. He might even end up helping this man. But let's continue. Let's see.
Aviv in order to testify against the Russian mafia. Is it possible that the Russians targeted Flight 1015 in order to kill him? Also listed on the manifest was an air marshal.
Because of one man, you kill 116 other
Justin
people.
goes to speak with the stewardess and apologizes for his early behavior, but needs to speak with the air marshal. The stewardess states that she doesn't know if there is one on this flight, but Justin insists that there is. She asks him to return to his seat. Justin sits down next to Joe and asks if he is the air marshal. Joe says no, despite Justin's belief that he actually is. Joe tells him that air marshals need to think like a terrorist, and the best way to detect deceptive behavior is to act like a deceptive person. Justin heads towards the Russians at the front of the plane and tries to search their bags. When he is noticed by other passengers, he attempts instead to open the overhead locker, and a sports bag tumbles out. The Russians stand to confront him, and although Justin tries to calm them by telling him he knows why they are on the flight, they insist that they are footballers on their way to play a friendly match in Tel Aviv. The crew come and try to break up the altercation, and it takes the arrival of the captain to calm everyone down. He tells...
Like, guys, just picture yourself being on a flight like this. Of course, you will think this person is crazy and being erratic. You wouldn't think this person is trying to save you. Honestly, watching these sorts of movies and conspiracy theories and things like that, it helps me be more, like, empathetic towards people that may be acting like crazy. Because the fact that somebody may be acting crazy to you does not necessarily mean that what they are saying is wrong or stupid, right? It doesn't negate the truth. They might be actually saying something that is just that you haven't reached that point of knowledge yet. They have that information, that knowledge. Imagine being on such a flight. I know that, like, yeah, of course we might be scared and we might be like, who is this crazy person? Like, get him off the flight, or like, go let him sit at the back somewhere.
Justin that he is threatening the safety of all the passengers and warns him to return to his seat. Still wandering around the aircraft, Justin listens to the podcast that goes on to say that there was one other person of interest on board, an investigative journalist directly linked to the events of the flight, Justin Sanderson. The narrator says that if you have heard anything about this flight, it is likely to do with Justin. Video footage of him causing a disturbance was uploaded online moments before the plane disappeared. The audio footage heard is of Justin's previous altercation with the Russians. The pilot appears, insisting that Justin take his seat. When he refuses, he is bundled to the front of the plane, where he is accused of having a psychotic episode. Justin looks at his watch and realizes it is now 11 p.m. He implores the pilot not to say the words, "Good night, New York," or it will be the last words anyone will ever hear from this plane. The pilot takes this as a threat, and suddenly one of the passengers that have been watching Justin all night binds his wrists and puts him under arrest. He realizes that she is the air marshal and Justin is returned to his seat. Well, at least now he knows who the air marshal is. As the time reaches 11:10, the marshal tells Justin that she heard what he had been saying, but podcasts don't predict the future. They are not going to disappear, but they will have people waiting for him when they land who can help him.
I'm getting nervous and anxious. Oh my goodness, I wonder what's going to happen.
Justin confides to the marshal that he has had a mental breakdown before. He knows what it feels like, but this isn't it. This is real. The marshal is called away, leaving the MP3 player behind. Justin takes it back and starts to listen some more. The narrator says,
I haven't seen an MP3 player in like so long. Like in almost like over 10 years, right? It's just nostalgic. And that sort of headphone, so nostalgic.
That this mystery is so intriguing because we have so many pieces of the puzzle but are left with no definite answer. As the clock counts down towards 11:15, the passengers and crew are seemingly unaware of what would happen next. The only question remaining is, could anything have been done to prevent the tragedy? Joe sits down next to Justin, who tells him that he believes him. Justin thanks him and tells him that he knows he's right. He can feel it. Joe suddenly has an idea. Joe is a pilot. He could turn the plane around and land them in Canada safely before they vanish.
But Joe has been
Joe
drinking.
tells him that he couldn't get into the flight deck as he doesn't know the access code. But Justin knows it. It's 10:15. Of course. Joe stands up and tells him that when he gets on the flight deck, he will drop the cabin pressure to put everyone to sleep.
Oh my goodness. What if this is the guy that causes the plane to disappear? He's literally not going to help them turn around. He's the one actually going to make the plane disappear. What if he's the one who is going to say good night, New York? Do you guys get what I'm saying? What if he is the reason why the plane disappeared? I knew I couldn't trust this guy. Okay, let me not jump into conclusion. Let's see what happens. Because I told you that this guy already looks weird. Like he looks like he's on the plane for something else. He looks like he's literally not really going to Israel. Like he's just, because they're on their way to Tel Aviv, right? But it's like he's just on the plane for being on the plane sake. And then why did he tell Justin that he used to be a pilot and now he doesn't pilot because of something? Maybe probably because of his drinking, because he has been drinking this whole flight. And this guy who has been drinking is going to take over this plane right now before 11:15 when they said the plane would disappear. I have a feeling that he will make the plane disappear. So the factor the people in the world currently are trying to figure out is why the plane disappeared. And it's because of this guy who was drinking. Oh my goodness. I feel like I've solved the mystery, but I may be wrong. Let's see what happens. This pilot who has been drinking is the one, is the factor they don't know about. Okay. Let's see if I'm right or wrong. Let's see. Hey, if I'm wrong, I'll take it.
So that there is no panic. He hands Justin an oxygen canister so that he can breathe normally.
I don't trust this
Joe
man.
tells him that he is doing a good thing. He is saving these souls. Joe gets up and enters the flight deck. The passengers are able to see Joe as he knocks out the flight crew. There is a panic, and over the speakers, Joe addresses the passengers where he wishes them all the best for the remainder of the flight. As the cabin pressure decreases, the passengers lose consciousness, and Justin makes his way to the flight deck. Via a screen, Joe thanks Justin. He taught him that the past is the past, and he can't get that back. But Justin has given him the clarity of awareness and the opportunity to find peace and escape the past the only way possible. And he will too. As the air control clears him for transfer, Joe says, "Copy that. Good night, New York." Justin realizes, far too late, that Joe was the pilot. Justin wakes up on a beach surrounded by suitcases and the wreckage of a plane.
I told you guys that there was something weird about this guy. I told you guys that he was the factor nobody knew about. That he was the pilot that took over the plane that nobody knew about and actually was the reason why the plane... Give me my tens in the comments, guys. I told you guys. I could just tell that something was off with this man. And once, his eyes sort of lit up when immediately Justin gave him the access code to the cockpit. His eyes just like lit up a little. Like he didn't want to give off his joy once he knew the access code. Wow. Wow.
Stands up, he sees the MP3 player in the sand and switches it on. It goes on to the second podcast titled The End of Civility. The narrator begins by saying that at the end of the last podcast, they thought they had revealed all that was known about Flight 1015. But a few months later, a cargo ship stumbled upon a near barren atoll where they discovered that every passenger of Flight 1015 had survived. Everyone, that is, except Justin. None of the passengers could explain what had happened to him. We see the surviving crew and passengers approach Justin and set upon him as he protests that he only tried to save them all. In the end, Justin was an investigative reporter unwilling to investigate himself until it was too late. He discovered that the path to hell is paved with good intentions, and it passes directly through the Twilight Zone. Wow, pretty freaky, huh? That was a fun one. Let us know what you think.
Wait, so the passengers killed him in the end because they thought he was the reason why their plane crashed? Huh? So where is the other pilot? Where's the pilot that actually crashed the plane? So the passengers thought because he gave the guy access to the cockpit, he was the reason why their plane crashed. I mean, clearly, yeah, he's one of the reasons why. If he hadn't given him access, he wouldn't have had access. But, at least they didn't die. Guys, this was a roller coaster. Honestly, I love this. I might watch more episodes of this. I had literally never heard of the Twilight Zone series until today. Okay. And I was like, okay, this plot seems interesting. Anything with plane crashes or, let's figure it out because the world is getting crazy right now. Weird things are happening in the world with planes and all of that. So yeah. Yeah, I really love this. I really love it. I think I would give this episode an 8 out of 10. It's something that I would thoroughly enjoy. Like, I can imagine myself eating and watching this just to while away time as I'm eating and all of that. I just don't understand the end. I don't understand the end. So if you have watched it, or if perhaps this recap left out some details, if you've watched the full episode, like the episode in its entirety, and you figure that this recap missed out on some details and all of that, please do share in the comments, okay? We want to know. Give us more context of certain things. And if you understand the end, explain to us in the comments. What does the end mean? Does that mean that they killed him in the end? Does that mean that, like, he died when that was his ghost roaming about? Like, I really don't understand the end part where all the survivors survived and then ganged up on him, and then where the podcast said everybody survived except one person. I don't know. And where is the pilot that actually crashed the plane? Was he part of the survivors who ganged up on him? Let me know, guys. Let me know, okay? Guys, let me know your thoughts on this. If you've never watched this, if you've watched this, what do you think of this, right? Have you had any experience with people acting crazily on flights? And what was your experience with that? How did you react? Did you believe them or not? Guys, if you enjoyed this watch party with me, please do me a favor by liking this video. Like it so that I can be pushed through the algorithm. And until the next watch party, please do subscribe. Bye, guys.